Thank you so much for joining me today, Dion. I am so excited for everything that you are going to share with us today. But before we begin, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your experience, and what you do?
Definitely, yeah. Thanks for having me today. And I believe that every business, they need something in order to reach their goals. So I founded DRBS essentially to express my passion for accounting and additionally to implement accounting solutions for many business owners so that they have the data and the reporting to make informed decisions.
That's great. So, what's the impact on taxes for someone that has, let's say, a side hustle income? I know during coronavirus, I've seen a lot of my friends start side hustles, but even myself personally, what does that look like when it comes to taxes?
So that's a great question. And normally when you have a W-2 paycheck, what happens is that your employer is taking out or withholding some of the federal income tax. And usually it's quarterly. They'll then essentially send that over to the IRS, the federal government, so that when you file your taxes, you're essentially getting a refund on what you've overpaid. So in the instance that you have a side hustle and maybe you're getting some side income, um, you're not having that income withheld. So in those situations, usually you're left with a tax liability, assuming that you haven't had any prior tax withheld. So what I would recommend in those situations is to start to, think about that tax liability at the end of the year so that you're planning accordingly and saving for that time.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because I have my W-2 income and then I'm doing MKB on the side. So how can someone like myself save on taxes, or someone else who receives side hustle income that's not taxed, such as a 1099, for example? How do we go about that?
Yeah, so I think that's another great question. And what if I were to tell you that if, because you have a side hustle and you have a W-2 job, so you still, depending on your tax liability, you still may have, um, you may be getting a refund or you may owe a little bit. You're kind of in that in-between mark. And so you're trying to balance, okay, well, what should I do?
Mhm.
So what if I told you that if you were to spend some money on marketing, right? So you shift your incomes up so that you're spending it on something that's going to help your business.
Mhm.
In turn, you wouldn't be taxed on that amount. Because what happens is that from a tax standpoint, let's just say you have a Schedule C. You're going to be taxed on your income minus your expenses, qualified business expenses, of course. And what then that leaves you at is your tax liability, and that's where they tax you at. So with that being said, if you want to ultimately save on taxes without having to spend money in other areas, what you'd want to do is essentially shift your income to maybe different tax saving vehicles. For example, like a 401k.
Okay. Okay. So you're talking about strategically shifting my income to lower my tax liability and essentially mitigate the risk of owing too many taxes at the end of the year when I file on my side hustle. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, yes. So it's always a balance of, do you want to pay more now or do you want to maybe pay some later? That's why I say maybe strategically shifting your income and just utilizing the proper vehicles.
Okay. So how can I keep my side hustle income and expenses organized so that come tax time in April, I'm well prepared and organized for everything? What tips do you have?
Yeah, so what I like to use is actually QuickBooks Online. It's a software that is not only for accountants, but it's also for individuals. But you don't have to find another subscription because again, that's just another expense. It's another cost that it does add up. And if you aren't an accountant, the cost is actually a lot higher. So you can use a bookkeeping software, but actually you can use even a budget setting tool similar to the one that you produced to actually keep track of all these expenses so that come tax time, you have everything organized and you're able to just say, hey, tax preparer or accountant, here's my spreadsheet with all my expenses. And what that is going to do is essentially go to a Schedule C so that the tax preparer can properly map those accounts and essentially produce your overall 1040 form.
Okay. Okay. So do you have any other pieces of advice or information that you would like to share in terms of how you specifically can help out people like me and other people that have side hustle income?
Yeah, definitely. So usually I work with business owners to helping them ultimately save on taxes, plan for the future, help them with their cash flows, with which in a time that currently, as of recording the video we're in, it's very important that you're planning for the future and making sure that your cash flow is still coming in and you're not going into a cash deficit. So what I would recommend, if you're unsure, or even if you just want to get some more information, to schedule a no charge consultation with me by going to drbsllc.com/contact. Or, it doesn't necessarily have to be me, but any type of accountant, I would recommend going to them and seeking their help. And 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 something easy that you can do would be downloading the budget sheet that you have at millsnobills.com and utilizing it. It is very important to know what you're going to have, what your liability is going to be at the end of the year. And also, it's a great way to help you pay down some debt.
So you're talking a lot about, preparing for taxes and reaching out to accountants. Can you tell me a little bit more in detail about what you do?
Yeah. So now I am, as an accountant, um, I do work with everyone, whether it's preparing their taxes or prepping for that. But the biggest thing that I help business owners and many individuals with is a beforehand work. So essentially, the organizing of the books, getting all of the receipts in order, and making sure that you are properly saving and finding the tax strategies so that come tax time, you have all of the proper withholdings, you have all of the proper deductions, and you're taking advantage of all of the available credits that you may be entitled to.
Good. So I know that I'll definitely be needing your help when it comes to tax preparing and figuring out ways to shift my income. I know how to contact you. And you talked about your website, but for someone that's just looking to follow you to see the content that you post, or maybe get a little bit more information in some unorthodox ways besides a website, what are other platforms that you're on?
Definitely, yeah. So I'm actually on LinkedIn as well. In addition to Facebook, both my personal page and business page actually are pretty similar in the content that I post, just because there's a lot of people that in my personal network that I feel could benefit from the free information that I share. I'm not too much on Twitter, but if you were to go to my website and check out my blog, I do have a couple different postings. And in the future, I'm actually looking to adding a lot more to that and being able to essentially be a resource hub and being able to translate the information that maybe the big companies are pushing out. For example, like when the government was all talking about the funding for the coronavirus, it wasn't really clear. So what I did is I essentially dissected that information and put it into an email so that it was easy to understand by everyone. So if you want to sign up for that email list, you can actually just go to my website, drbsllc.com, scroll to the bottom, and just drop your email and subscribe.
Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to answer my questions. I know that I found a lot of value, learned a lot of new things, and I know that anyone watching this video is going to think of different ways that they can shift their income and prepare for tax season. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you as well.